From my end. Yes, I've done the setting there. Yes, I've done it. Yes, I've done everything, sir. Okay. Yeah. That's okay. Then we're right. Okay, sir.
Good evening and welcome to Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. The very weapon the colonial government used to deprive Ambazonians of their voice at the start of this ongoing genocidal war has been invoked again to try to influence society wrongly. La République du Cameroon's colonial government is launching recruitment of 1,000 youths to fight fake news and hate speech through the internet. From their requirements and eligibility, one can already tell this is a snare by a failed junta in Yaoundé fraught with crimes to trap and hold youths hostage from speaking the truth or using their voices. As being patriotic to a lawless and genocidal government is as good as being a tool to hide and support their evils and corruption. While Ambazonian hopes to break free from the genocidal regime, we'll take a look at the latest signs of France's collapsing influence in West Africa as the removal of France's soldiers from Mali and Burkina Faso goes a long way to prove that. Well, we'll see all of this in the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. And just so you know, we are having the House Speaker, Dr. Winnie Lobati, with us tonight to give us some intel and some details of the international press meeting conference holding tomorrow. Well, with that, we'll dive into the news of tonight, but only after the Spine headline.
Well, these are the prime headlines for today. Sadly, La République du Cameroon military invades funeral of two innocent Ambazonians. All right, today also we will be looking at the difference between the Swiss-led international mediation and the Canadian third. Also, La République du Cameroon wants to lure the youth to cover its crime online. How do they want to achieve this is a story that you would not want to miss. 5 Cameroonian nationals have been arrested for allegedly planning to kidnap a Nigerian. Right, also today on the foreign scene, what did Biden's classified files contain and what those classified files mean? This and more you would find out today. And in sports, Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles win to set up meeting for NFL championship. All right, now let's get the news in detail.
The media greatly influences society. They inform people about what is happening. It permeates people's lives by creating their own criteria and opinions. In this way, the media moves the masses, creating different social movements.
For over 60 years, the people of Ambazonia were deprived of such privileges. The privilege to enhance their own criteria and opinion. They have suffered cultural genocide for 6 long decades, but not in this age and not with Undaunted ABC Amba News on board.
You must understand that wars are fought and won in the media. The speed of the revolution on Ambazonia's quest for freedom cannot be explained without highlighting the diligent use of the media.
Franco-Cameroon colonizers, among other strategic moves, weaponized the media against Ambazonia for so long, and they continue to do so even today. The question would be, how much do the oppressed people of Ambazonia need to counter the media rage?
Indeed, how much more is required to stop the genocide? The carnage in Ambazonia didn't start today. In 1961, 1972, 1984, and 1992, Ambazonians were slaughtered in huge numbers and help was not forthcoming. Why? Because the oppressor was the piper in the media.
The good news is we have what it takes to dictate the pace.
Right now, ABC Amba TV is taking advantage of the wonders of multimedia aggressively
to inform the misinformed and disinformed with Undaunted and other revolutionary programs bringing it to the news untold stories.
Most importantly, to win the media war by taking ABC Amba TV into every multimedia platform.
In a word, where the importance of storytelling can never be overemphasized, Ambazonians has to tell her own story, not the other way round.
And like we say it always, Ambazonia must narrate her story accurately. We can do this together, you know, right? You are just a click away. Visit our website at www.abcambatv.com, and the steps are quite simple.
With just a click on the website, you can become a club member with so many benefits.
You can also make a one-time donation, advertise and showcase your goods and services at the marketplace on the website.
That was easy, right? You're welcome on board.
And thank you for opting for the winning team.
While the talk of looking for an ideal means to end the ongoing war in southern Cameroon's Ambazonia, the colonial military of the La République du Cameroon is on the ground. The colonial military is having fun killing innocent Ambazonia. A softer ground for Paul Biya and his soldiers is seen in funeral grounds. They have again stormed another funeral ground, killing 2, this time around in Bamenda in the Njimafo neighborhood. Well, we sincerely hope that this war ends someday. Fellow Ambazonians, this is where we will begin the full briefings of Undaunted tonight. I am Onyi Obalance. Smart is here as always. How are you doing, sir?
Very well, Onyi. Good evening, Ambazonians. Indeed, we hope this will end soon. Well, two innocent, young and dynamic Ambazonians on Sunday, January 29th, were killed at a funeral by the colonial La République du Cameroon's military. Mourners were surprised to see La République du Cameroon invade the burial ground in their number after combing all the huge crannies, grabbed two young boys. The thugs bundled the two along. Onlookers were astonished that after getting some gunshots, the result of it was the corpses of the two laying at a road junction. They were shot to death point blank without any interrogation. These are two innocent boys who left their homes full of energy and life with the high spirit of solidarity that animates Southern Cameroons, coming out to condole and mourn with the bereaved family.
Well, unfortunately for them, their lives ended in an expedition of love. They are now, of late, all the dreams they had, both for themselves, their families, and the nation at large, of course, are all wasted. Wasted not by any natural hazard, but rather by a group of people with a mandate to extinct all strong and vibrant Southern Cameroonians. While the colonial La République du Cameroon military always cooked reasons for their atrocities and their atrocious act against the innocent population of Southern Cameroons, but in the case of the two killed yesterday in Bamenda, they gave no reason for their killing.
Sometimes the flimsy justification is necessary because it is evident that the colonial La République du Cameroon's military is very guilty. But a case like that of Sunday, January 29th, where they just stormed a burial ground, bundled two people, shot them to death, and left without any reason is really provocative. It is just to say that Amazonian lives do not matter, as if stating the obvious, and can be wasted at any time. This incident is coming barely few weeks after the colonial La République du Cameroon's military carried out the same unspeakable act in Bambui. They invaded a funeral ground in Bambui, killed a man under masquerade attire before tagging him as an Amba fighter.
All right, so let's go to the difference between the Swiss-led international mediation and the Canada monologue. Well, for clarity and education purposes, we will be giving you the differences between the Swiss-led international mediation and the Canadian monologue, according to President Sako. Now, the Swiss talks was a genuine mediation, and initially, we can say that La République du Cameroon was ready for the Swiss talk. Now, if you go back to 2022, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Switzerland, who was the official mediator, was received several times by Paul Biya and the Prime Minister of La République within the framework of their Swiss mediation.
Well, La République du Cameroon had also officially appointed Félix Mbayu, La République du Cameroon's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, to constitute the Cameroon government's delegation to the Swiss negotiations. Unfortunately and sadly, the Amazonian sellouts and blacklegs who gathered in Canada were the very individuals who sabotaged the Swiss-led international mediation and helped La République du Cameroon to back out of the Swiss process. So you can see that for the Swiss talks involved the principle of both ends, the principle of revolution and mediacy were followed duly and accordingly.
Now, let's examine the Canadian process. It was not endorsed by any actor of the international community, like the case with the Swiss talk. No Canadian envoy was received in Yaoundé, like was the case for the Swiss process, where the Swiss envoys were received several times at the presidency and prime ministry of Cameroon. And because Dr. Common Sense does not do things anyhow, he always does his things professionally, legally, and genuinely, he didn't fall for it. He even referred to it as the Canadian monologue. Well, we can say that the Canadian process was entirely sponsored by La République du Cameroon, unlike the Swiss process that was sponsored by Canada as a neutral party.
Well, for a fact, the Swiss process was an international mediation endorsed and sponsored by the international community, while the Canadian process was a purely Cameroon and not endorsed by any actor of the international community. In summary, the Canadian process was a domestic Cameroon Grand National Dialogue held in Canada. And this is the reason why La République du Cameroon came out and lambasted Canada for wanting to transform itself from an ordinary host to a mediator of an entirely Cameroon-sponsored domestic grand national dialogue too.
Well, to date, neither Canada nor the Blacklegs who gathered in Canada can provide any document signed by La République du Cameroon and the sellouts portraying the Canadian triad as a mediation process between separatists and La République du Cameroon. All right, and moving on, just like we told you in our introduction today, we have two great personalities in the studio already today. We have Dr. Winnie Lubati, the Speaker of the Interim House of Representatives. We also have Dr. Barrister Tim Mbesiere also in the house. All right, fellow Ambazonians, tomorrow is going to be a great day. We have a lot in stock tomorrow, as tomorrow is the Ambazonian International Press Conference. All right, when you hear press, you know that it has to do with newsmen from around the world, especially when you also hear the word international. So it's going to be a great one for Ambazonians, and we all are looking forward to it. And so we have both of them in the house, and we'll be talking to them on the reason why there should be an Ambazonia International Press Conference. Right. And if you are looking at our screen right now, you see that they are here. Good evening, Barrister Tim Mbesiere. Good evening, Dr. Winnie Lubati.
Good evening to all of you. Thank you for having us here. We're here once more to give an opinion. We think will help everybody to understand what we are for and why it is necessary to have an international press conference. Thank you once more. I'm here to give my own contribution, and I hope it will be useful to all of us.
Okay. All right. So the first question would be this press conference. It is quite seemingly very important, especially at this time with all the Canadian facade and all. We really want to know why this press conference, apart from that reason, why else it is important, and what are Ambazonians to expect from this whole Ambazonian International Press Conference tomorrow?
Let me go first before Barrister Tim. Sorry, I had to watch it. Fellow Ambazonians, I'm happy to be here, and thank you, fellow viewers, for watching us tell you about us, Ambazonia. I think the first and most important thing is we should have had multiple and several international press conferences prior to today. The last we had was in, I think that I remember, was 2021, before all the mess that happened. That was when we had one. But it's long overdue. But I think we are in a good place now that it's worth now telling the international community our own story, not our story being told by others. Let's educate them about our story. Let's educate. We're going to also help them understand not just our historical background, process, as well as the legal aspect, and as well as who we are as a people and what makes it legal that we as an indigenous people are also a nation and within the international community as is defined. So it's better for us to tell the story. As I might say, to add to that before Barrister Mbesiere comes in, at least it's an international conference that should be covered with journalists from at least 5 continents. So it's not just a regional international, it's worldwide international. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Dr. Winnie Lubati. Barrister Tim, you wanted to say something, add into that?
Yes, I think the word international conference has a lot of connotations inside. First and foremost, whatever conflict we have, and we have one, it's an international conflict. a conflict not just involving Ambazonia and the Republic of Cameroon, but it's a conflict involving the world at large. The world at large is represented by the United Nations. It is the United Nations that is at the origin of this conflict. And so once we know that it's an international conflict, and then we realize that we've been fighting actively for the past 5 to 6 years. All of us are familiar with this social media thing, WhatsApp, Zoom, whatever social media thing. We talk there all the time, but we're talking to ourselves. We're talking to ourselves most of the time. Someone from somewhere else might catch a glimpse of it, but essentially we're talking to ourselves. And then most importantly, again, on social media, we're going to find groups talking. Every group represents something. But it is good to hear from the horse's own mouth. This struggle is like an elephant. Everybody might be talking, each person might be talking about a different part of the elephant, the tusk, the trunk, whatever part you want to talk. But it's good to hear from the elephant itself. That's what we mean by from the horse's own mouth. This interim government, we insist, is the elephant itself, is the umbrella that speaks for the people. It is good for the world to know what is the voice of the people, not to know part of the voices of the people. No. The interim government would speak to the world. The positions that the president will give in that press conference will be the position of the interim government, the people of Amazonia. So that's what it will be about. And so it is important for us to know that we are not just talking to ourselves all the time. We are talking to people who matter. And that's the reason for the international conference. Because again, somebody from Japan, from China, from Great Britain, might read the story from another group, from some other group, call it anyone, so-called deaf, anything. They are speaking as a group, maybe from a perspective. But it's good to listen to the interim government because the interim government, though in exile, is the representation of what every single government in the world is supposed to be.
Thank you so much, Barrister Team this here. All right, so I just want to find out, probably I should direct this question to Dr. Lubati. Now, when it comes to successes, there are different levels to it. And when it comes to this war, we have the general success, which is, of course, to get freedom. But when it comes to the international press conference, what do we hope to achieve in processes, because we know that that is the end and final result we want at the end of the day. But for the international press conference, what would it add to the war at the moment? What would it add to the struggle at the moment?
Thank you, Onye, for that. I think the first thing I would say is, number one, we are going to educate, inform, and remind the international community of who we are, our story, what is happening, and all what has been going on in the last, let's say, 61 years and up to date, the last 5 to 6 years that have been heated. We want our story to be told as we are experiencing it, and not as somebody else from a distance is observing or is thinking or is being fed lies to tell others. We will tell it as is it, and we are not going to miss what we. One thing we would like to achieve, the goal is that the international community or the press represented at that conference will take our story and put it unedited, as raw as it is, even as damaging as it may be, even to the international community, that their role is to inform. And in informing, some of the things may fall at the doorsteps of the UN. Let it be, and let the world be educated as to why we are in this conflict. Because we had a blotch decolonization process that never was completed or actually done the right way. So that's one of the goals, to get them to um, ultimately tell the story as we put it out. Then the second goal will be to get the international community engaged and not be aloof. Why diplomacy? People always say diplomacy is in the background. We want people to start holding and asking this question. We used to have one person, inner city press guy, who used to ask the UN, but that guy was pushed out because he was asking the tough questions that the consciences of many people, or some of the so-called who are in the Security Council, the wonderful five, the big fives, it was uncomfortable for them, and they did not want it to be exposed. But it's high time. The lives of Ambazonians is important. 8 million Ambazonians, and if you are the 1 or 2% that doesn't like Ambazonia, there are many other places you can go. If you want to stay in La Republique, you're welcome to stay there. But let the masses, the voices of the millions and millions, over 8 million Amazonians, let it be heard as it is, as raw as it is, and let the world react after they hear it. It's no different from Ukraine. The world is reacting to Ukraine. Let them hear our story and let them carry it, and ask why it cannot carry the same attention like Ukraine war is.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Winnie Lubati. Okay. I feel like this international press conference is coming at a very critical time. There's been a lot happening, starting with the three indicted from Amazonia, the Canadian peace process talks, the press release from the Global Affairs Canada, and recently, and the report we'll be bringing shortly, also, La République du Cameroon has employed or wants to employ 1,000 youth to, quote, seeking to recruit 1,000 young people who will volunteer to fight against fake news, hate speech, and other uncivil behaviors online. This already in itself tells a lot, because, I mean, government that is very lawless and very has a lot of evil going on, even down to fetish things. When they say youths to quoting again, when they say used to fight against the fake news, this is obviously like getting used to cover up the crimes that they will be perpetrating and they have perpetrated, to cover it up and not let any other person be free to talk. I mean, this press conference is doing the actual opposite. Don't you think this recruitment La Republic is going on about might be a little bit, if it is successful anyways, it might be a little bit of a hitch as regards to the information people get. A lot of people might be misinformed. What do you think this press conference can do to avert something like this? To you, Dr. Rini Lubati.
Okay, thank you. Ooh, I'm glad. I'm a mom. I have kids, and they are young people, and I don't want to see them anywhere near La République being agents of La République to cover up for their crimes. You know, let's go back to World War II. Let's go back to Hitler. What did Hitler do? Brainwash. Who did he brainwash? The young people. When he got the young people, he recruited them, got them into camps, brainwashed them, trained them to carry his narrative, and millions of lives, besides the 5 million Jews that we always talk about that were slaughtered, but millions of lives perished internationally because of Hitler and his brainwashing. Granted, at that time they did not have social media, but today we have social media. So La République is thinking it's time for them to take the war on social media. They already are doing it, but they are coming to the open now to tell the La Republique citizens and some foolish Amazonians or Southern Cameroonians or Anglophiles, as they may think, as they may call themselves, whatever appellation they want to give themselves, that by coming to social media, they can debunk, they can lie, and they can do this. The first thing is La Republique needs to clean up its own house. It needs to stop its lies that they are telling and projecting into the world of information. They can never actually give one good research because it's all packed and jammed with so much lies. Let them stop that. Let them stop their own corruption. Let them do that, because those 1,000 kids that they will be recruiting, they will be recruiting them to teach them how to lie, how to be crooks, and how to be false. Let me use another appellation that may be religious: false prophets. We have plenty of them already on the ground. We don't need any more in the social media milieu.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Winnie.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Winnie. Now, I would want to ask, during the course of 2022, towards the tail end of 2022, Dr. Sako, gave a speech to the UN African Summit. Now, I can remember we've always been clamoring for negotiation, or should we say collaboration, with other African countries. Well, I wouldn't know how far the interim government has gone with that, but that is on one side of this question I'm asking now. During this press conference, the international press conference, do you think that the president would be taking questions as it relates to collaboration with other presidents in the African continent? Because we know that this particular struggle is a genuine one, but then it's also worrisome that other presidents are not coming in full support to, or even if not coming out probably openly, nicodemously, they could do something. But let's just get your thought as the Speaker of the Interim House of Representatives. Do you think that there would be a way that Dr. Sako could answer questions as it relates to his relationship with other African countries and other African presidents? And if he has done that, what has been the result so far?
Thank you, Onye. I think that's one thing we should understand, that there are some levels of diplomacy that would still remain classified. But I would say the president would never shy from taking any question about collaboration. And mind you, Onye, collaboration will have to be defined. What are you collaborating on, or with whom, and for what? So all that will have to be defined. And I'm sure, knowing who he is, the smart guy he is, he's going to define all that. And he's going to say what level of collaboration you can have with who. To be honest, an eagle and a chicken, their level of collaboration may be so different. Except one collaboration, we can all name them that they are birds. They belong to that family of birds. But when it comes to flying and flogging together, it will be different. You cannot collaborate. The chicken and the eagle, maybe the baby eagle can probably hang out with the chicks for a little bit, but after a while, it's bound to do what it's bound to do. It's to fly. So let's be careful with how and who puts collaboration and how. But as to talking to other African nations and other nations, we do work on the back to get that. Remember, until we really have a true thing that is workable and can come to the press, that will not be put out to the press yet. You cannot take a half-baked cake and bring it to the public for people to eat. Barry Sambe said, go ahead with what you have on that. Is he frozen? Is the barrister frozen?
I'll try to get that connection. He was on some seconds ago, but I think he's currently frozen. So
Yes,
Malubati, it's just you and
for sure.
I, and that's not here for now.
He's back.
Okay, thank you. Let me come back. I'm sorry I went out uncertainly. Now, what do we want cooperation? You mentioned African countries. You see, initial statement I said based. So what do we expect, or what have we been expecting from other African countries? At the bottom of this struggle is independence for Ambazonia. And the African countries put together, group themselves in the African Union, the AU. Familiar with Article everybody to have boundaries at independence. But not all. Above all, our particular case, the African Union has did it at least once officially. We all remember Communication 266 of 2009. The rest of independence is there. I say, they said that Amazonia, there are a people who are into dissemination. That is black and white. But it's important for us to know that that communication, like any other communication issued from that body, law is not published until the heads of state sign up to it. They meet, approve it before it goes out. So it is not just a legal document, it is a political document binding on parties, binding on Cameroon, and binding on Tanzania. I said they visited, they went beyond just saying that we are a people. Now, they added that being a people, they realized that we voted to join this La Republique. And that at that time in 2003, when the action was filed, there was a constitutional issue that we had been protesting, signing for some type of federation, which was gone. And the African Union addressed it. They said, look, they're complaining about the constitution, which is the form of state, for example. We give you 180 days, that's 6 months, to address these constitutional issues. And we, the Union, we are prepared to come in and help you address this issue within 8. When that communication was published, was made public, the Cameroon government appealed to the very African Union to give them more time to address the constitutional issue. This was 2009. We are now more than 15 years and they never came to it. So the African Union said by their is addressing they know that our boundaries are and the Republic signed up to the charter. The founding member of the African Union. The other thing mentioned in Communication 2. Can the African Union give us independence? No. The African was not designed to give independence. They addressed the issue of independence in that particular. And they said, look, yeah, these people are asking for independence. But unfortunately, address the issue of independence. Because the seat issue came out in 60, long before the African Union was formed in 1964. So it is the United Nations that had that in 1961 that addressed the issue legally and nationally. Does that mean African Union is not there? The nations, it's a group of countries, they vote. So we're expecting empathy from all member states to push this thing to only the United Nations, the trust territory of the United Nations. The management of trust was bad. And so we expect African Union support, specifically in addressing the issue at the United States. What can they do? And the African member can raise this a United Security Group. That's their responsibility. They were from Ethiopia. Were there, and they saw them. They were there. Um, Namibia freed itself from South Africa. Namibia, us, they were trusted. The South Africa United Nations came in and said, "Look, it's wrong. You can't do that." And so they will expect the African Union to do. That's what we expect the international community through this story. The process from the United Nations questions about.
Barrister
Over
Tim,
to
this
you.
here, your connection is really not giving us a good audio feedback from your end.
I don't know.
I wouldn't know how we can fix
I'm
that so
getting
that we
you
can
very
hear you clearly. Your audio hasn't been so nice. So I know that the technicians would help you fix
I don't know.
that while we try to connect more with Dr. Lubati at this point, and probably we'll check back to know
I'm
if your
getting
audio
you.
is better. Barrister Mbixia, did you hear us, please? Let's see if your sound is better. Want to be sure your sound is clearer now so that you can continue. Can you just say something?
I'm getting you. I don't know why you're not getting.
Yes, Barrister, your audio hasn't been so clear. It's been breaking actually.
Even the video as well.
So
Am I
we
okay
didn't
now?
really hear most of what you said. But I'm sure
I
that that would be fixed. That would be fixed in a moment or two. But we still have Dr. Lubati here in the house, and when she speaks with so much authority, and I'm sure that is enough for us this evening. For now, all right, Dr. Lubati. Now, going back to where we started, going forward to where we are. Do you think that progressively? Do you think that we are doing well? Of course, as a member, as a speaker of the interim House of Representatives, do you think that so far we are doing well? Not just because of the international press conference, in other areas. Do you think that so far, with the level and the ideas and every other program that has been put in place, do you think that we are doing well so far?
Yes, I say that vehemently and strongly that we're doing very well. It's evident, excuse me, it's very evident that we're doing well. That's why that which was a strong and important mediation process, La République kind of started drawing cold feet or drew their cold feet and thought that they could initiate another monologue, thinking that this time it would involve Amazonians. And unfortunately, those who could not see beyond their shadow took the bait and ran to it quickly and went to Canada. And of course, they came out with La République doing what it said, that they never gave their dark call for that. And um, I wonder if the people who said, who ran there had seen a written letter that La République said that they were open to the peace process by Canada, as they had demanded that they wanted to see it with the Swiss-led process. Sometimes I don't want to bring the fights of the dogs by the street corner onto such a platform, but I think it's a sham that a genuinely process that the entire international community supported and financed was kicked by one party and then opted to go start another process, and then everybody just ran there like chickens with their head cut off. Would it not have been the time for us to hold our heads up, um, talk to the international community? Here is the belligerent party, La République. They have violated so many treaties and so many things or promises, and they have even gone beyond doing what they should not have done, and they have walked away because they see that all what they have been doing, there's no court of law that they can stand, and they will win the case. And neither will they win it politically, and neither will they win it neither will they win the hearts of the Amazonian people to turn them towards them. So that one particular thing led to the Canada one, and of course, maybe it's also the time for the international community to eat the cake that La République has been baking and serving Amazonia online to others, so that they can see how they can work. They call it messy. I don't know whether it's messy or it's manufactured. They say Amazonians are divided. I guess they can see that La République is divided, more divided than us. At least we know who is who on our own side. But for them, they think they are all the government. We know some people are groups, and we know who the government is. But for them, they think that they are government, but they have like how many factions? One person says he speaks for the government, the other one says they speak for the government, but no one of them is really speaking for the government. And we don't know, because it was evident when Mr. Paul Biya came to Washington, D.C. for the African Summit, the U.S. African Summit, and all we could see was that by age, normally, he's a great grandfather who should have been at home enjoying his time and retired. He's no longer at a point where he should have been handling state matters at that level. That's why the man was confused. He was clearly, I don't want to put a diagnostic terminology, but he was unfamiliar with his environment and who he was to meet and where he was. If you cannot be oriented of place, time, and then that's really a problem. And probably date. Probably he didn't even know the date too. So that just tells you something that the international community is more afraid of. That at the passing of Mr. Biya, what becomes of La République? We better patch up this thing of La Amazonia quickly, so that we'll be able to contain the mess that may be coming down the pipeline. But no, ours is not to be patched up. As we are a state and a people, we have international boundaries, and we need to have our own say and our own rights not be denied because the international community is afraid of how La République will disintegrate in case Mr. Biya passes out. With that also said, you mentioned the lawsuit at some point. It's funny how La République has, in so many fashion and ways, tried to get Amazonians be labeled terrorists. The international community knows that we are not terrorists. And they've infiltrated, they've had their spies in so many places, they've used different things. When La République slaughtered the people in Gabo, when they slaughtered the kids in Kumba, when they kill baby Martha, Mami Api, when they raise down homes, is that how a government functions? Is that not a terrorist government? So why am I saying all this? There is somebody that you can clearly point and say, that's probably who the terrorist is. It's not the Amazonians. We have been on the self-defense part of this struggle because we know our rights, and we know our legal rights, and we know our political rights, as we came of age. What our father said we will be doing, we're now doing it. And they gave us that baton stick and we're carrying it out. I think I see your ads are coming. So I'll pause so that your ads go through before we talk some more.
Start, please.
Okay, all right. I'm glad that Barrister Tim Besia is back live here with us. Barrister Tim, well, I have this one question. It would appear that La République du Cameroon declined to any talks that not their way, and in their statement, they would rather prefer the resolutions of the Grand National Dialogue to be implemented. Now, what do you advise Ambazonians or the interim government in this regard? Barrister Tim, this one would go to you.
Well, I think it is just a question of emphasis. We have from day one rejected the Grand National Dialogue. So implementation of its resolution is not part of our program. We have from day one laid out the process, which I was about to explain when I was shut out. Our issue is an international issue. The Grand National Dialogue is a local issue debated in Yaoundé for purposes of settling disputes in Yaoundé. Our dispute is international. So resolutions of the Grand National Dialogue or any similar thing obtained either in Yaoundé or in Switzerland or anywhere just between Cameroon and some representative of Ambazonia cannot be implemented. They cannot do justice. They cannot address our issue. So basically, they could have created 10, 20 House of Chiefs from the Grand National Dialogue. We're not going to address the issue of decolonization. That's not the issue now. And so, whether they came to Canada, or they went to China, or they went to Paris, without the framework being laid for the talks, nothing will come out of it. I was saying before I was shut down again, I was responding to an issue you raised, the place of the African Union, African countries. Are you getting me now?
Yes.
I was trying to address the issue of African countries' participation. And I said that African countries know it very well. Most African countries, if not all, belong to the African Union. The African Union was founded in 1964. It had a charter, the founding charter, which stated in Article 4B that members of the African Union, OAU at the time, would be bound by their boundaries as at independence. Cameroon was a founding member in 1964. Its independent day is 1st January 1960. At that date, they had their boundaries frozen at law. And I was saying that the African Union, African countries have already addressed our issue in Communication 266 of 2009. In that Communication 266 2009, they recognized and stated in black and white that Ambazonia, called Southern Cameroons, they are a people with a right to self-determination. They stated that. They went further to say, look, we realize that these people came to join you in 1961. The issue now is the Constitution. And they wrote in black and white, we give Cameroon government and the Southern Cameroon filed the case 180 days to address the constitutional issues that have been raised in this argument. Cameroon went further. After that decision was published, Cameroon went further to ask for more time. Say 180 days is too short. The African Union has said, we, the African Union, we are going to give you expertise to help you draw a constitution. That was 2009. They asked for more time. And today we are 2023, 12 years after or more. And they have not, the position now is the constitution is indisputable. You cannot talk about the constitution in Cameroon again. And above all, that resolution became binding only after the heads of states signed up to it. So it is a political decision signed by political leaders in Africa. That's what they did. That's why they have addressed it. In fact, they even addressed, again, I was saying, they addressed the issue of Southern Cameroon independence in that resolution, in that communique. They say, look, yes, you have raised all these issues that arose in 1961. But the African Union was founded in 1964. These things were done before we were born. So we're not competent to go to your birth certificate where you were born before we were born. And so they threw the matter on the feet of the United Nations. And so what do we expect from the African members now? The United Nations is a place for countries. We are not part of it. We expect them, one, several, if not all, to take this thing back to the source, the United Nations. Support it, because it is the issue of colonization, decolonization. Our own declaration was botched. We had exactly the same status like East Cameroon. They were all category B, trust territories. We were category B. People don't even understand what category B meant. Category B, trust territory, meant territories that were ready for independence within the shortest possible time. And Ambazonia was one of them. In fact, we were more ripe than East Cameroon. We had 2 elections before 1961. East Cameroon never had any election before. Their first election they had, in fact, they never even had a constitution until 1962. They never had even a semblance of election until 1964. So we were more ripe. Take the reverse. They would have been telling them to join us because we're already matured. We had institutions in place. And so what we expect the African countries, this message should go to them, to address this at the United Nations. And they have done this before. They were all behind Eritrea when they fought to free themselves from another country called Ethiopia. They were all behind Namibia. When Namibia was a trust territory like us, South Africa sought to absorb them. They freed themselves from South Africa and became an independent country. Why then is Ambazonia different? Zero difference. And so that is what we expect from them. Again, to back to what you asked, the Grand National Dialogue is a non-event as far as this matter is concerned. It's a non-event. The dialogue held in CDN in Toronto, or the recent one, which they are even denouncing, they have never even agreed that they were holding any talks, they are a non-event. Because, as I've said, the problem is a big elephant. Everybody has a chunk. These people went to Canada. They might have been hitting the trunk of the elephant, or they were hitting the legs. This is the elephant itself, the interim government. They are the house. They are the voice of the people. So they are the people who can give an authentic voice. And as I said earlier, it is an interim government in exile, but it represents all the semblance of a government of a state. We have a government with government officials. We have a house that legislates for us. So that is important for the whole world to know that we are not just terrorists. We are not just rebels. We are not a Fang people. We are not Hausa people rebelling against Yaoundé.
Are we terrorists?
So we are not terrorists. We are not Betis. Because Betis are tribes. In Ambazonia, we also have tribes. We have our own tribes. So this nonsense of Anglophone will give Anglo House of Chiefs. It's irrelevant. So again, let the whole world know what we are, why we are fighting, and what we want.
Okay.
Until the press reports this correctly, will the world understand us? They should never, especially those in Nigeria, they should never equate us with Biafra. We're not Biafra. We're not any other.
All right.
We're not splinter group in any other part of the world. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much, Barrister Mbesia. Thank you so much for that clarification and for lending your voice and your wealth of knowledge to this discourse tonight. Well, obviously, tomorrow I'm sure that President Sako and his team will do a great work. And I'm sure that the international community will definitely get the right story to tell. Fellow Amazonians, the date is tomorrow. Tuesday, 31st January 2023. And the time is 3 p.m. Amba time, 9 a.m. Eastern time, 8 a.m. Central time, 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Australian time. Now, it will be live on ABC Amber TV. So I'm sure that you do not want to miss the Ambazonian International Press Conference tomorrow. So ensure that you keep a date with us tomorrow for you to get the first hand information from ABC Amber TV. All right, Dr. Winnie Lubati and Barrister Tim Besia, this is where we would have to let you go and focus on other national matters. But before you go, just in a sentence, all right, anxiously mobilize Ambazonians to look forward to tomorrow's press conference. Just a sentence, please.
Fellow Amazonians, tomorrow is an important day where very important key issues will be addressed on the international stage. And we'll have many journalists to carry it to all the, if not all the continents of the earth, but at least 7 continents of the earth will hear about what we are as a people stand for and what we are expecting the international community to do on our behalf. So I will invite everyone who is able to join in, tune in, and share whenever the link is out so more people will participate. Even invite La Republic. We want them. Even if CRTV wants to come and hear, let them come. Thank you.
Okay, I think Madam has said everything, but I think there's something that surely will come up tomorrow, which all Ambazonians should be interested. Sure, they will ask this common question: oh, you are not united. Oh, you are fighting in groups. You are doing all this. Expect this to come up directly or indirectly. But since we are doing this pre-talking, I want to make a sentence about that to Ambazonians, because I've said we've been speaking on social media to ourselves. Yesterday, I saw a program where there was Eric Tato, Mark Barretta, Chris Anu talking about, oh, let us come together on a different platform. That's good talk. But we don't quarrel with people who don't belong to us now. We quarrel with people who destroy us. There are thousands and millions of Ambazonians who are not in this struggle. We don't blame them. We blame people who come here, lie about us, destroy us, and then leave. They are welcome to come back. But you cannot just come back until you repair the past. Repair the past. For example, I saw Mark Barretta say, oh, he was one of those people. Mark Barretta, you are welcome back. But you must be prepared to say that, look, we are not going to postulate for the killing of President Sako anymore. Mr. Anu, you can come back. But you must be prepared to say, look, I lied. For example, I told a lad that he stole money from the CDC. You have to do that. If you do that, the doors are open. We are human beings. And human beings make errors. The credibility of a human being is being able to recognize his or her own errors. Mr. Mba Akuru, we are prepared to welcome you back, provided you say, look, this nonsense of wanting a written paper from Yaoundé for the Swiss talks did not apply to the one of you supported in Canada. Say that. Be bold enough to admit your own errors and join the fight. Nobody would drive you away. The fight is open for everybody. Let our local people understand this. Let Sisiku come back by recanting his so-called Kondenge IG. That's as simple as good morning. That was a mistake. You'll be forgiven. And so we'll move on. So Ambazonians, I'm sure the president will address all these things. Be an eyewitness, be an ear witness yourself. This is just pre-talking. But you will get more from the horses on the mouth. We're not the horse. We're reporting for the horse. And so expect to get more clarifications, better answers. So tomorrow you will not talk in a position of strength. We don't know everything. If it's something you missed yourself, you will learn it tomorrow because you have the opportunity to ask questions and receive answers. Thank you very much. We'll all be there with our suits, with our changshoes,
Yes.
with our cutlasses, and with our spears. And we'll do it until we get to Boya. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much. That was a lot of sentences, but we accept it. All right, see you all tomorrow. But the news still continues right after the break.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8, verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding. And now back to the reports for tonight. News reaching Undaunted says the colonial La Republic du Cameroon's government is launching recruitment of 1,000 youths to fight fake news and hate speech through the internet, the very weapon the colonial government used to deprive Ambazonians of at the onset of the genocidal war going on. The La Republic du Cameroon's government is seeking to recruit 1,000 young people who will volunteer to fight against fake news, hate speech, and other quote uncivil behaviors online.
Well, the call for application was launched on January 16th by the Colonial La Republic, the Cameroon Ministry of Youth Affairs and Civic Education. Now, this seeks to make the youth social media patriots. Now, it is also part of a civic and national integration e-campaign the ministry is implementing. These new recruits will be expected to promote good behavior online, promote patriotism and living together, as well as publicizing government information on new socio-economic programs and opportunities for youth on the internet.
Well, apart from being Cameroonese of at least 18 years old, applicants are expected to fulfill several criteria before they are recruited. The Colonial Ministry said they must own social media profiles and sites with at least 1,000 followers. They should not have participated in any fake news or hate speech campaign or having published any obscene or unpatriotic content. The social media patriots will have to carry out several tasks, including promoting civic and patriotic behavior on social networks, as well as fight against the depravity of morals and the spread of fake news, hate speech in social networks and in the internet. This is what the Youth Affairs Ministry said.
Well, it added that the initiative aims to redirect La Republic du Cameroon youth from posting unhealthy content on social networks, a problem that the government has battled with for some time now. Now, the Colonial La Republic du Cameroon Ministry of Post and Telecommunications has fronted a campaign to encourage youth to use social media responsibly.
The national campaign to promote the culture of cybersecurity took the La Republic du Cameroon's colonial minister, Minette Libom Ling Likeng, to several regions of the country last year, where she sensitized university students on the responsible use of social media. Undaunted sees this as a snare to trap and hold this youth hostage by a failed junta in Yaoundé fraught with crimes.
All right. Meanwhile, in a related development, 5 Cameroonian nationals have been arrested for allegedly planning a kidnap to kidnap a Nigerian. Now, this incident is said to have happened in Adamawa state of Nigeria. According to Sahara reporters, it was learned that the incident happened on Sunday.
Well, the kidnap attempt was reportedly foiled following intelligence provided by a Nigerian as gathered operatives of the State Intelligence Bureau (SIB) of the Adamawa State Police Command swooped on the kidnap gang in the Jambutu suburb of the state capital after perfecting plans to abduct one Emmanuel Ebel, a Nigerian. Spokesperson for the police in the state, SP Suleiman Ngoroje, confirmed the arrest to new men newsmen on Sunday, and he said the crime was busted following reliable information received from a Good Samaritan, leading to the arrest of all illegal immigrants from the neighboring Cameroon Republic 20 minutes before implementing their organized crime.
Well, the command, upon receiving the information, designed a security ring around the target and luckily engaged the suspected kidnappers. So, while La Republic de Cameroon is planning to engage young men to be social media savvy, others are training to be kidnappers.
Interesting. Well, on the international scene, we take a look on the update to Burkina Faso's governing junta's request for Sabre to leave in a month. Well, that is for the France soldiers to leave in the month. Well, as we told you, and France already agreed to do so, but then its withdrawal leaves a vacuum that the mercenary Wagner group is already so eager to fill. The removal of France's soldiers from Burkina Faso is the latest sign of the former colonial powers' collapsing influence in the West African region, a development that Russia has been utilizing, citing Mali.
The end of France's roughly 400 persons mission in Burkina Faso comes 10 months after its troops were kicked out of neighboring Mali, where French forces spent nearly a decade leading a losing fight against a growing jihadist insurgency. Now, it killed thousands and displaced millions as it spread across the Sahel. In both countries, the French withdrawal occurred as government leaders strengthened their ties to the Kremlin, which has used the mercenary Wagner group to gain a foothold in the Central African Republic, Libya, and Sudan.
Now, France has sought to maintain its close relationship with Burkina Faso, but the junta's explicit demand that the country withdraw its troops came after a series of increasingly hostile moves towards Paris, including banning French broadcaster RFI. Amid the turmoil, France stated that it would recall its ambassador to Burkina Faso while seeking clarity from authorities, and is expected to announce a revamp of its security presence in Africa. Many French troops have already relocated to Niger, which borders Mali and Burkina Faso.
Well, Western governments have for years warned about the threat of Russian disinformation campaigns in the Sahel, spearheaded by companies linked to Wagner, found Yevgeny Prigozhin. But relations between the Kremlin and political leaders in the Sahel have grown close because Russia is increasingly seen as an effective potential partner in the war against jihadists.
Now, on January 13th, during a state TV interview, a journalist told Russian ambassador Alexei Saltykov that many Burkinabe want Russians to be the main partner in the fight against terrorism. Russia wants the support of all its African allies. Saltykov responded, says we're looking to reinforce our efforts in the fight for a multipolar world.
France has maintained outsized influence over the politics, economics, and security of Sahelian countries in the decade since they claimed their independence from the former colonial powers in the 1960s. That history, alongside French troops' failure to stop the spread of extremist activity in the region, has contributed to a growing sense of resentment. These dynamics created an opportunity for the Wagner Group, which Mali's ruling military junta hired in December 2021 to, assist in its counterinsurgency efforts. Also, Burkina Faso has said it would not do the same.
Now, the UN has accused the private military company of gross human rights violation, hiring mercenaries in exchange for Russian access to gold mines. The press service for Concord Group, the catering company owned by Prigozhin, didn't respond to questions seeking comment about its activities in Africa. A Bamako-based research associate fellow at the Dutch Klingendale Institute described Burkina Faso as following the Malian blueprint. A key step, she said, is pushing out inconvenient partners. Both countries have ejected UN officials, French diplomats, and finally, the French military, all while forging closer ties to Russia.
Meanwhile, on the other end, President Emmanuel Macron has accused Moscow of using disinformation to stoke anti-French sentiment and to, pursue a predatory strategy in Africa that serves its own interests. But Russia has for decades provided trainings and weapons to African countries, including in the Sahel. The young soldiers who have taken over leadership in Mali and Burkina Faso are tapping into a rich vein of resentment and re-establishing Cold War era links.
Well, according to Musa Mara, who served as prime minister under Ibrahim Boubacar Keita, the French-aligned president ousted in the 2020 coup, the pro-Russian tilt in Mali has little to do with the popularity of Russia. Rather, he said, it is an expression of the unpopularity of France.
All right, I'm still on the foreign scene. Let's look at what the classified files of Biden contains. Well, we have been talking about classified documents. The question is, what did these documents actually contain? Well, it is still unclear about what the classified documents were about. Biden himself even said he was surprised to learn about the first discovery at the Penn Biden office and that he didn't know what it included. Meanwhile, CNN has reported that Biden's attorney turned over 10 documents which classified markings in the first batch, some of which were labeled with the highest level of government classification. Now, the material included information about Iran and Ukraine.
Now, the White House has declined to confirm that report and has provided no details about the documents found at Biden's Wilmington home either. The White House has espoused confidence that a review will show the classified materials were inadvertently misplaced and the president and his lawyers acted promptly upon discovery of this mistake. The documents, which were discovered among personal and political papers, have been returned to the Department of Justice. Biden also defended his handling of the material after a reporter asked why he stored the documents near his vintage Corvette. Quote, he says, "My Corvette in a locked garage, so it's not like it's sitting out on the street." The White House has also pledged to continue to cooperate with investigations into the issue. But White House officials haven't explained why they didn't disclose the Washington office discovery before the midterm elections or the Wilmington documents earlier this week when the media reported on the initial discovery.
Now, the question is, what are classified documents? Well, Wikipedia defines classified information as material deemed by a government to be sensitive information that must be protected. Access to such material is restricted by law or regulation to particular groups of people with the necessary security clearance and need to know, and mishandling of the materials can incur criminal penalties. Well, a means of state secrecy. Classified documents are marked by a series of specific acts. Right historian Lam Lebovic, these acts include the stamping of a document, the development of bureaucratic methods and logic of classification, and also the enforcement of physical and legal protection against prying eyes. Therefore, making such documents integral to an institution controls over information. Now, the history of classified documents in the United States is remarkably short. The modern-day classification system was created in an executive order issued by the 33rd U.S. President Harry Truman in September 1951. The order established three categories of documents, which are top secret, secret, and confidential, and they laid rules and practices for classifying and securing information, which is still used to keep information secret.
Now, is it legal or political? The issue of classified documents has been more political than legal. Politicians and office bearers have landed in trouble for the mishandling or unauthorized acquisition of the documents and suffered politically than facing severe legal ramifications for the same. Classified documents have been the shortcut to controversies surrounding the White House in Washington for decades. Political talk shows and ordinary American citizens have heard all about different classified documents leaking or mishandling over the years, and the recent Biden episode has only further sparked the general public's speculations.
Now, what's Donald Trump saying about Biden's predicament? Predictably, the former president was quick to pounce on the revelation after earlier FBI raids on his Mar-a-Lago estate turned up to trove of classified documents, which Biden blasted as totally irresponsible. Trump, who is currently under criminal investigation by the Justice Department, posted in his Truth Social platform. He says, "Why didn't the Justice Department announce their highly classified documents found in the Biden's office before the election?" He also posed the question, when is the FBI going to raid the many homes of Joe Biden? perhaps even the White House.
What happens next? Well, Attorney General Merrick Garland announced Thursday that he was appointed as special counsel, veteran prosecutor Robert Hur, to investigate the president's handling of the document.
All right. And right after the break, we will bring you the editorial. And today, we will look at Diplomacy Masterclass Part 3.
Wisdom for the Ambazonian Quest with Bridget Muyang Fielding. Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding. King Solomon, Proverbs 4:7, KJV.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know. Apostle Paul, 1 Corinthians 8 verse 2.
We are only as wise as our awareness of our ignorance. The only true wisdom is knowing you know nothing. Socrates/Plato. This wisdom is the altar of humility and success.
There is no wisdom for a nation at war to sink its own gunboat. It weakens diplomacy, is tantamount to capitulation and defeat. That is exactly what some so-called Amazonian leaders have done, asking fighters to keep low for whatever reason. This is surrender wisdom, and it has delayed progress for 2 years. Bridget Muyang Fielding. In our editorial of tonight, we'll take a look at the final part of Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple, Part 3, the Interim Government Care, Team Act, and the Silver Lining. The Interim Government Care Regency, on Canada's list of Ambazonian movements, is a certain interim government. While we know that there is only one legitimate government led by President Sacco, the Canadian government knows or should know that there are many shadow groups passing around for the interim government. President Samuel Ikome Sacco of the interim government has stated that it is not party to the Canadian offer at the time of the proclamation that makes the use of interim government on the Canadian government communique very deceitful and dishonest. Otherwise, the Canadian Foreign Office should have taken the trouble to specify which faction it is referring to. The incarcerated Ambazonian leader, Ayuk Tabe, is head of a group called the Interim Government Care, as already stated. Care is what differentiates the latter from President Sacco's government. Interim Government Care, we all know, is a group that was present in Canada and that is party to the Canadian offer. The following reservations further erode away confidence and credibility in the Canadian offer. Mr. Julius Ayuk Tabe lost credibility in the eyes of Ambazonians when he created a government in prison. It got worse after he got involved in ill-advised negotiations for prison and reckless conversations with foreign agents of the oppressor and with appointments inconsistent with the Ambazonian struggle. One, the MP Sebastian Nadot, while addressing the French Parliament in 2019, stated that there is hope for one Cameroon after his discussions with Cameroon's opposition leader, Maurice Kamto, with former Cameroon bâtonnier barrister Karim Mouna, and with Sisiku Julius Ayuk Tabe. This address with Mr. Julius Ayuk Tabe has not denounced, deprives him and his interim government care regency of all claims to legitimacy concerning the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonia quest for statehood restoration and independence. Informed Ambazonians in their large majority did not believe at the moment that Mr. Ayuk Tabe can be trusted. 2. Still in 2019, Mr. Damne Yarima, regent for Mr. Ayuk Tabe, Vice President of the Interim Government Care, appointed former U.S. Under-Secretary of State for African Affairs Herman J. Cohen as their official mouthpiece, lobbyist, and chief negotiator. This assignment has been duly executed by Ambassador Herman Cohen. All his tweets and declarations since his appointment have pushed for a federation. His closing tweet on the subject in 2021 declared that La République du Cameroon had defeated Ambazonian forces militarily and called on Yaoundé to reconcile the nation. Neither Julius Ayuk Tabe, who granted interviews freely in prison, nor his regent, Vice President Damne Yarima, bothered to denounce Mr. Herman Cohen's federalist agenda. Nor has his appointment been revoked. Where is credibility and confidence? Now, the Ambazonian Coalition Team. As for what the Foreign Office communique calls Ambazonian Coalition Team, Canada knows or should know that the so-called team is not what it was during the Swiss-led process. Why then pretend that the Canadian offer has Ambazonian movements on board when in fact these are shadow groups? The silver lining, as stated in the Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple series and in other documents, diplomacy is a delicate crooked art, whereas international relations is guided by the UN Charter, continental charters, treaties, conventions, accords, and other agreements. The practice of the art is not strictly rule-bound. In Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple 2, Bridget Fielding Moyang pointed out how difficult a task it is to get both parties to a conflict to agree to dialogue or negotiate. It is much more difficult to get the stronger belligerent party to agree to come to the table of negotiations. That is why sometimes concessions, often called confidence-building measures, are made ahead of negotiations, while the Canadian offer makes mention of confidence-building measures. Those measures have not been stated. Why do these continue to be a secret even after Canada has officially announced that it will facilitate a peace process? How will confidence-building measures be implemented if they are not made public so as to get consensus with the movement that were not present at the pre-talks and with the people on the territory? If a ceasefire is one of such measures, how would this be achieved without President Sako, Commander-in-Chief of the Amazonian Restoration Forces, that form the majority of the active fighting forces on the territory? All the reservations notwithstanding, there is an offer on the table. That offer is itself carries a slight silver lining. Canada's involvement in financial special status workshop for Cameroon might just be the deceptive facade that causes Yaoundé to agree to negotiate. This is how complicated diplomacy can be. It is therefore important that actors read along and between the lines. They said the onus to sell the Canadian offer to the parties concerned is on the Canadian government. Doing this is going to be an uphill task, as even its initial supporters are expressing dissatisfaction with Minister Melanie Joly's announcement. It will take real hard work and adjustments for this offer to garner consensus, and especially for all factions to embrace it wholeheartedly. What can the interim government do? President Samuel Ikome Sako and the interim government have two options: stay out and watch the offer collapse, or go in and try to make sure that all the prerequisite conditions for a genuine peace process are put in place. The interim government and President Sako will be both right and correct in whatever line of action they adopt. Bridget Fielding Moyang harps on the fact that diplomacy is a very complex art, and that getting a belligerent like La République du Cameroun to accept to come to the table of negotiations at all is always an uphill task, sometimes requiring the use of subtleties akin to the casting of spells or witchcraft. However, the interim government and President Sako could approach the Canadian government directly to examine the details of the offer closely. What are these preconditions that nobody wants to make public? What is Canada bringing to the table? Has Yaoundé agreed to consider all options, including parting ways with Ambazonia? Which international bodies and countries are backing the Canadian offer? These are key issues that must be addressed before the interim government can hazard accepting the Canadian offer. Thanks to the recent support from the Congressional Black Caucus, President Sako has the necessary international clout to pull this through. It should be noted that parties walk in and out of processes, and that parties reject such offers after close examination of the details. If the interim government chooses to approach the Canadian government, President Sako should be open and transparent with the Amazonian people so as to preserve the interim government's credibility and legitimacy. This credibility and legitimacy cannot be sacrificed on the altar of diplomatic silence and discretion. Amazonia is not there yet. To do so is to be involved in witchcraft. Now, her conclusion says, once again, she underlines that it is in the best interest of all Amazonian factions and groups to get together, work together during any negotiation process. Is it possible for the groups cited in the Canadian communique and the interim government of President Sako to work together? Certainly, but they must make sure that their differences are sorted out prior. It is both in the interest of the leaders of these groups and factions and for the overall good of our people that they do so. The Inkatha Freedom Party of Chief Buthelezi was part and parcel of the South African peace that ended apartheid in spite of his excesses as a spoiler and enabler. As for Canada, it is completely inadmissible that the Canadian government will at the same time pose as a neutral third party while working hard to get Yaoundé implement the outcome of the Grand National Dialogue, decentralization, and special status. It is important that she desist from financing special status workshops while her peace process offer lasts. This is the least she can do. It should be noted Canada's effort will be futile if it gets into any sort of talks without the interim government led by President Sako that will simply confirm our fears of another Yaoundé monologue. Should Canada join Yaoundé in dribbling the suffering people of the southern Cameroons and wasting time while Yaoundé strategizes, positions its troops on the territory for a final onslaught? Is it seeming to be hopeless? Well, we have to stand firm. Now, there you have it, the final part of Diplomacy Masterclass Made Simple, Part 3, The Canadian Offered Dark Clouds and Silver Lining by Bridget Muyang Fielding. If you want more of such enlightening articles, kindly visit our website at www.abcambertv.com for more. Subscribe, become a club member, and a part of this winning strategy. Final payment details on your screen. I am Star Smart reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amber TV.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
All right, thank you, Star Smart, for that particular editorial, Diplomacy Masterclass, Part 3. Now to sports. The Kansas City Chiefs kicked a game-winning field goal at the death to ensure they will face the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57. Why did that change? Well, Gab Ellison has more.
Latest world sports. American football. Super Bowl 57. Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles win to set up meeting for NFL championship. The Kansas City Chiefs kicked a game-winning field goal at the death to ensure they will face the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 57. The Chiefs met the Cincinnati Bengals in a repeat of last season's AFC Championship game when the Bengals claimed a shock overtime win, but Kansas City avenged that loss with a nail-biting 23-20 win to reach their third Super Bowl in 4 years. The Eagles beat an injury-hit San Francisco 49ers 31-7 for the NFC title. That means the top seeds in each conference, who both finished the regular season with a 14-3 record, will meet for the NFL Championship in Arizona on 12th February. Cincinnati twice leveled in the second half at Kansas City's Arrowhead Stadium as two of the NFL's best quarterbacks traded blows. The visitors, Joe Burrow, hoped to reach a second straight Super Bowl in just his third season, while the Chiefs' Patrick Mahomes aimed for a third Super Bowl in 5 seasons as a starter. The Bengals had won their past 3 meetings, including last year's AFC title game, and the rematch looked set for overtime again as the teams were tied 20-20 for most of the fourth quarter. But despite carrying an ankle injury, Mahomes scrambled for a first down with 17 seconds left, and a penalty for a late hit on him gave Harrison Butker the chance to make the game-winning kick from 45 yards. Novak Djokovic dominates Tsitsipas to win 10th Australian Open. Novak Djokovic has won his 10th Australian Open Championship and record equaling 22nd Grand Slam title overall by beating Stefanos Tsitsipas in the final at Rod Laver Arena. The Serbian star dropped just 1 set in all tournament despite saying he feared a left hamstring problem might force him to withdraw, and finished with a 6-3, 7-6, 4, 7-6, 5 victory over first-time Australian Open finalist Tsitsipas on Sunday as a result of winning the first Grand Slam of the year. Djokovic also reclaimed the world #1 ranking from Carlos Alcaraz. The 35-year-old did not compete in the Australian Open a year ago after being deported from the country because he was not vaccinated against COVID-19. Government restrictions have eased since, and he was able to get a visa this time despite still not having gotten vaccinated against COVID. I have to say this has been the most challenging tournament I have played in my life. Not playing last year, coming back this year, Djokovic said after the match. Only the team and the family knows what we have been through in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Now, Djokovic has extended his winning streak at the hardcourt tournament to 28 matches. His 10th trophy in Australia adds to the record he already held. His 22 major championships, which include 7 from Wimbledon, 3 from the US Open and 2 from the French Open, are tied with Rafael Nadal for the most by a man in the history of tennis. With sizable Greek and Serbian communities in Melbourne and Rod Laver in attendance, there was a raucous atmosphere. Djokovic came into the match with his confidence high, having won all 9 of his previous Australian Open finals and with a 10-2 career advantage over the Greek. He was superior throughout against Tsitsipas, but especially so in the 2 tiebreakers. Djokovic took a 4-1 lead in the first and ever it was 4-all. Put out the last 3 points, he led 5-0 in the closing tiebreaker, and when it finished, he pointed to his temple, then climbed into the stands, pumped his fist, and jumped with his coach Goran Ivanisevic and other members of the entourage before collapsing, crying. Djokovic returned to the court, sat on his sideline bench, buried his face in a white towel, and let some more tears flow. Margaret Court with 24, Serena Williams with 23, and Steffi Graf with 22 have the most championships among women. This was also the 93rd ATP Tour level title for Djokovic, allowing him to break a tie with Nadal for the 4th most. Jimmy Connors holds that mark at 109. Djokovic was participating in a 33rd major final. Tsitsipas in his 2nd. The 24-year-old's other one also ended in a loss to Djokovic at the 2021 French Open. Gab Ellison reporting for Undaunted, ABC Amba News.
All right, thank you, Gab Ellison, for that sports report. And with that sports report, we've come to the end of Undaunted tonight. But before we go, let's give you a recap of our major stories.
Well, La Republic de Cameroon's military invade funeral and kills 2 innocent Ambazonians. The difference between the Swiss-led international mediation and the Canadian charade, La Republic wants to lure the youth to cover its crimes.
All right, also today we told you that 5 Cameroonian nationals have been arrested for allegedly planning to kidnap a Nigerian. Also, we gave you details of what a classified files contains. And in sports, we told you that Kansas City Chiefs and Philadelphia Eagles wins to set up meeting for NFL Championship. And that was it for tonight on Undaunted. All right, and of course, special thanks to Star Smart and all the crew of Undaunted.
We the people, ABC Amba TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.